Black Ops 2 is often referred to as one of, if not the best Call of Duty game, sandwiched perfectly in the middle of the golden age of the franchise, with a fresh coat of futuristic paint and some nifty ideas where shocked didn't become series staples. And with the newest Black Ops title gearing up to finally be as direct of a sequel as you can be for a game with such wide swinging multiple endings, we wanted to take a look back through a modern lens at this masterpiece, see exactly what made it so good, and see what modern Call of Duty can learn from it. Welcome to Game Rant. My name is Austin, and today we're stepping into the time machine and revisiting what made Black Ops 2 just so iconic. Now, COD over the years has grown substantially in terms of different game modes. Between all the different MP variations, campaign, zombies, or other co-op, and of course, the free-to-play Warzone. But meanwhile, back in the day, while still a pretty sizable offering, titles really just stuck to the big three: multiplayer, campaign, and zombies. So to give this video a bit of structure, we're gonna break it down between all three. Starting off with what got us all addicted to Call of Duty in the first place, it's multiplayer. Now, like I said, Black Ops 2 was right in the middle of the golden era of COD. So just as a base, you could go into it expecting a no-nonsense shooter with tight controls and a fast pace. I will say though that going back to play a few games of this after the last decade of evolution to the COD formula, it actually feels a lot slower than I remembered. Like somewhere along the way, just about every game adopted sliding as a mechanic, to the point that now it just kind of feels sluggish to play a game without it. It's like going back to classic Halo and realizing that there was no sprint and everything feels just so far away. But to be fair, the gameplay and map design was built around a bit slower movement back then. Guns don't really have any recoil. Time to kill is near instant, and the maps are wider, with cover situated at choke points, so you might as well use that cover, as opposed to the super sprint, jump around, never stop moving playstyle that's plagued modern COD for the last few installments or so. And speaking of map design, as someone who spent a good bit of their childhood playing this game, it was just a fun, nostalgia-ridden trip down memory lane, looking through the lineup of maps in this game. But I was also pretty surprised at actually how few have been remade over the years. We've got Raid, Hijacked, Express, Slums, and Standoff that have all been brought back a collective 13 times, sure, but what I wouldn't give for an HD version of Plaza or Carrier 2 one of these years. Come on, Treyarch, make it happen. In terms of innovations that this particular game's MP did have over the others, to be honest, there really wasn't a ton. In many ways, this game was just a refinement of the series' core gameplay, just aged up into a future setting of, wait for it, 2025. However, there was one huge thing that this game had that, frankly, I'm shocked we haven't seen come back in more than a handful of other random titles since, and that's the Pick 10 class system. For those unfamiliar, it's exactly what it sounds like. For your class, you're given 10 points to pick whatever weapons, attachments, equipment, and/or perks that you want to equip. And it might sound overly simple in hindsight, but what this did was allow players to build their soldier in any way that they wanted. If you were playing mid in a game of CTF and only worried about getting quick kills, you could load up your weapons with plenty of attachments and completely forego perks. Or if you were a sniper, you could double up on perks to keep you hidden and take a second primary. Rushers could build their own rushing classes, campers could build their own camping classes, and you could even build a pretty powerful melee-only class for an extra challenge. However, despite this system being widely loved by the community, it's only returned a handful of times on and off throughout the late 2010s, and now has seemingly been permanently replaced with a gunsmith system and perks that reshuffle every other year or so. And while this new system isn't bad by any means, and I actually really like how Treyarch has been able to incorporate wildcards back into the system, including new ones that replace your melee with a launcher or give you an extra streak, I can't help but feel like the bumpers are still on. And if they just went back to a pick 10-ish system, we could see a lot more variation on the class level and not just meta weapon builds ruling the game. Then on top of that, obviously there's also the big, expensive elephant in the room whenever we talk about a modern live service game, and that's microtransactions. Where nowadays you can't as much as scroll to your class without being hit with an ad for the store. So I was actually curious how BO2's store system worked way back when. Because Black Ops 2 actually had a decent amount of microtransactions hidden behind this little store button, including camos, reticles, and calling cards. All similar stuff that you'd expect to see today, but then I looked at the price. For an entire camo, it was only $2. For those who aren't frequent shoppers, right now over in Warzone, there is a $30 bundle for this skin. I know inflation's a little crazy right now, but that's absurd. But wrapping up the little multiplayer section here, I'll just say that I was actually pleasantly surprised by just how simple everything felt. There were no gimmicks, no ads, nothing to keep you from doing the thing that you were there to do. Play the game. It's kind of wild that that's where the bar is for a live service game these days, but hey, you know, that's where we're at. Then I did want to quickly talk about the campaign for a bit, and I'll do my best to remain spoiler-free here because I really believe that this is one of the best single-player stories that COD has ever produced, and if you haven't played it yet, now before BO7 is the perfect opportunity. Its narrative is split between two different timelines. So you're playing as David Mason in the futuristic take on 2025, while frequently visiting an old woods, who tells you stories of your father, Alex Mason, who you play as in the 80s, which was a great way to keep the new storyline feeling rounded and connected to the first game while not relying on cheap nostalgia. One interesting thing gameplay-wise that they did this year was the introduction of these Strike Force missions, which were basically side missions, where you were controlling multiple people on a battlefield almost like an RTS, but still jumping into their heads to play like regular Call of Duty. And to be honest, they really weren't for me back then, and they really aren't for me now. But what I really appreciate is that the outcomes of these missions can still impact the main story. In fact, there's actually several choices that you can make throughout the entire game that will change how it all plays out. Now, it's not super in-depth, and you still play each mission no matter what, but it does alter who you're with, certain cutscenes, and of course, the actual endings that can all vary pretty wildly, which in my opinion is the best way of doing it. Right? This is Call of Duty at the end of the day. It's an action movie that I just want to turn my brain off and play through. But the small added consequences to your actions really brings a lot to the table and makes it more replayable as you try to go back and change things. There's even a very specific path that you had to follow back in the day to unlock a secret ending that, while not canon, is very cool to see. If you know, you know. And lastly, we have Black Ops 2 Zombies. Zombies wasn't exactly in its infancy here, being the third title to include the mode, but it was far from the massive seller that it is now. And one of the biggest differences between this Zombies and modern Zombies is just the information gap. BO2 Zombies straight up didn't tell you anything, from the confusing leveling system to perma-perks to how to even leave the starting room. The devs trusted you, the player, to figure it all out for yourself. Now, fast forward to BO6, and there's objective markers and tech maps to reference, as if it's a campaign mission. While these features can be great for newer players just getting into the series, there was just something so immersive and rewarding about those early Zombies maps. The first time that you discovered Noctur Untoten hidden in the cornfield, finding secret messages on Mob of the Dead, or stumbling into the crazy place for the first time felt so great back in the day because you actually had to find it yourself. Maps-wise, I'll be honest, they weren't all winners. In fact, I remember when the game first dropped, a lot of the community was in crisis mode over the first map on launch, Transit. This was the biggest map that we have ever seen. which would have been a great thing, except technical limitations forced them to cover a lot of it in a thick fog and fill it with annoying denizen zombies that latched onto your head whenever you ventured inside. This resulted in the map feeling like a bunch of disconnected maps that were each incomplete. However, as the game's DLC released, Zombies maps seemed to get better and better. Each map had its own specific flavor or take on zombies with map-specific mechanics. For instance, Die Rise released with elevators. Mob of the Dead was set on Alcatraz and featured an afterlife system that would reveal clues to help you with the main quest of escaping. Buried had Arthur, an NPC who would help or hurt you in various ways. And then there was Origins, this massive map taking place in an alternate World War I battlefield with giant robots walking overhead and portals to another dimension down below. The mission statement of Black Ops 2 Zombies seemed to be simple core mechanics with deep map-specific ones, which meant that while not every map was a winner, every map was at least memorable, and you had a reason to want to play one over the other that you just don't get to see too often in modern zombies. And overall, Black Ops 2 was a simple game, but a simple game that was just a ton of fun. There was no fluff, no fuss, no muss, and every decision made seemed to be in service of making a better and better game, and not just to make a quick buck. And it's for those reasons that I can confidently say that Black Ops 2 sits among the best Call of Duty titles ever made. But that about brings us to the end of this little look back. What was your favorite memory of Black Ops 2? Let us know down in the comments section below, and thank you so much for watching.